Welcome to Six's Overdrive. Well, guess who's back? It's Hannah from Insta360. And remember the last time she burnt her leg on the motorcycle when we were watching her video about the motorcycle bundle from Insta360?
Where today I'm going to go over 360 cool things about our latest camera.
Well, she's back, and this time she's flogging her new product, the Insta360 X2.
You gotta grab that Luce. You gotta bust that thing. Get your kicks on the street. Gotta kick back, step back. Oh, you gots to skeet. It's a rat-a-tat-a, 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 bala. Rat-a-tat-a, 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 holla.
But what I want to get to the bottom of today is if you already have an Insta360 X or the 1X or the 1R, there's so many different little numbers here. I've got to keep them straight for the rest of the video. But if you already have one, do you need the X2? Full disclosure, I don't have an Insta360 X2 here on me right now. I have owned an Insta360 X, and I currently just bought an Insta360 R Twin Edition bundle, and that's the camera I'm currently using. So based on that, this video will be completely unbiased. I am not paid by Insta360 X or Insta360 or anybody like that. This is just me talking about how these cameras work. Now this is a rare gem because you hardly find anything like this because Insta is very good at promoting their cameras. So with that in mind, this video is completely unbiased. We are only going to cover the items that you need to make a purchase decision on one of these three cameras. The rest is all just media hype. So just so you know, I have worked extensively with all of the editing, all the apps, everything with the Insta360 X and the Insta360 R bundles. So I am experienced and I do know what I'm talking about at least a little bit. This video is about real-world experiences and what it's like to use these cameras every day. My goal by the end of this video is to give you a very clear idea of which camera out of these three is right for you. And believe me, by the end, you'll figure it out. It's pretty easy to figure out. First off, I'm going to go through whether or not you can actually handle or whether or not you want a 360-degree camera of any type. My fellow Canadians, Peter McKinnon and Maddie Hipoja, and a host of other YouTube influencers would have you believe that this camera and the Insta360 cameras are nothing but rainbows and unicorns. But that couldn't be further from the truth. So here are some of those things about any Insta360 product that I've used. Some of the downfalls that I really need to warn you about. 360 cameras are a lot of extra work. If you deal with Android phones like me, I have a Note 10 Plus from Samsung. Good luck using the apps. Most of the features don't work at all, and the ones that do crash regularly. Why don't you comment down below if it's just me or something, but I can't even get a hold of the Chinese customer service that never gets back to you or anything. They never help me out with any of this stuff. Let's comment down below, and if you have an Android and you have the same problems, let's let Insta know so that they can fix these problems. Customer support is really slow, like I mentioned before. It's China, and they're on whole different time zones, and they take a long time to get back to you when you have a problem. The camera, it crashes fairly regularly, especially when you're working in the higher end modes, the 5.7K, 24 frames per second type stuff. There's moisture that gets in the lens, like just from carrying your camera outside, and they want you to stick it in a bag with a little package of silica. That's the fix. Out of all my action cameras I use, the current one I use is a DJI Osmo Action, a Sony FDXR2000 or whatever, my GoPros, all of that stuff. This is the worst audio, and it's quite a bit worse than the GoPro Max. A lot of that, of course, has to do with the fact that a lot of times when you're using these cameras, you're quite a distance away from your camera, but the GoPro is miles ahead. The lenses on 360 cameras notoriously are really susceptible for scratches and damage. you really have to protect them. So be aware, if you don't just shove these things in a pocket somewhere, you make sure they're protected at all times. The lenses on all 360 cameras have really bad 360 chromatic problems, where you get the purple and magenta fringing along all the little bright spots, you know, up where you have trees and high contrast situations. It takes a lot of editing to get that out, and it's a flaw with the 360 lenses because they're such wide-angle lenses. The chromatic aberrations are really a problem with 360 cameras, and it'll throw you off when you first get your footage done. There are glitching issues in low-light situations when you're trying to, even on a tripod, it's going to stutter and glitch, and when the bass is playing in a club and you're trying to get some footage in a club, the bass affects the gyro in it or something. It jitters a lot. Any name brand phone put out in the last 2 years, like your Samsungs and your Apples and your Pixels and stuff like that, will outperform these for image quality in video and photo. You need the newest, best tech to run 360-degree camera footage, and even the editing and everything is going to slow you down when you do have a good computer. I'm running a desktop configuration that's made for video editing. It's only 3 years old, and I recently upgraded it with a $1,000 upgrade, and it still chugs pretty hard when it's trying to eat up some of this footage. Your phone, I have the Note 10 Plus, still slow and sluggish, and that's a pretty much a flagship phone. So if you got anything below an iPhone 8 or something like that, better upgrade your phone at the same time as buying this camera, because nothing's going to work. After all that, you're probably thinking that I hate the camera, but I don't. I just want to make sure that you know what you're getting into, because Insta is so good at burying all the negative reviews on this sucker. If you're looking at a 360 camera, right now Insta is the easiest 360 camera to use. Especially with the app and the way it works on an iPhone, it's actually pretty cool. The shots that you can get with these cameras are way different than what everybody else has. It's almost like having a drone or another camera person around you. You take the pictures, it records in 360, and then you recompose in editing later. So it gives you infinite possibilities as to what you can do with your footage. It's truly cool. Almost unlimited what you can do with the shots in post-editing after. And, you know, they're good enough to use on most applications. Full professional stuff, you know, unless you're doing something really quick, your customers are going to pull it apart when they go to look at the final product. They're, like you say, the chromatic aberrations and stuff. Generally, it works for almost anything. You're talking full 1080p on anything that you're going to do on this camera. So, let's get into which one should you buy. The Insta360 X is getting a little old in the tooth now. It's 2 years old, almost right to the date. Now that the 1R and the X2 have been released, there's going to be limited updates and support for this camera, for the 1X. And that being said, this camera's capabilities are almost exactly what the new cameras are. Now, if this is the camera you own, the X1, and you're thinking about upgrading, it is a worthwhile upgrade, mostly for the waterproofing and some of those features that make the camera more durable and easier to use. Let's get into some of those reasons. Like I said before, all the new cameras are waterproof, and the 1X isn't. The battery on the 1X is the lowest out of all of them. You can buy extra batteries, very cheap though. You're going to be losing on the shot features, all the little cool clone trails and pass-through walls and all that kind of stuff. But your basic picture is going to be identical to these other cameras. Read the other reviews or watch them when they do side-by-side comparisons. This thing isn't giving up anything to the new big brothers from Insta. So I would say that this is the camera for you if you want to dip your toe in the water. Just don't dip the 1X in the water because it's not waterproof. It'll give you all the same images, get you used to editing and how it's going to work on your phone, and you can easily, like I sold mine for $300. Fully kitted out with extra batteries and everything. $300. That's half the price of the new ones. You can do just about everything you want with this, and then if you really like it, in a year, maybe go to these newer models, maybe there'll be a new mod, whatever. The X2 is a new kid on the block, which usually means new features all the way around. And while this is true for the 1X, it's not so much true for the 1R. The 1R and the X2 share almost exactly the same architecture. They do the same thing, everything is about the same. But the advantages that it does have over the R, I'm going to go through here quickly. There's a better battery life. Photography, anything that has stitching. This is a narrow camera and it's better. So if you're doing virtual tours with your 360 cameras, then I suggest you get the X2 over the 1R. The 1X actually works very good for real estate photos as well. Audio, the X2 now has 4 microphones and it's supposed to pick up your voice a whole lot better. The audio's better. Better 1/4-inch screw mount for more action. The X was kind of bad. You were kind of holding your breath as to whether that screw mount would work or if it would snap out and wreck your whole camera. And it did happen to a few people. So the high-end action thing, they beefed it up this time. It's supposed to be quite a bit stronger. It should be able to be on with cars and motorsports. But I still have a little hard time trusting that. Form factor of this camera makes it much easier to throw in a jacket pocket or your front of your pants. Very slim, very nice and compact. There is no exterior case, so you're not always constantly taking it in and out of the case. The 1R is 1 year old and it has all the bells and whistles that the X2 does, but it has the ability to upgrade. It has a modular system to it, which means that you can get different cameras all in one little bundle for less money than what you can get the X2 for. So you can actually get an action camera and a 360 camera for less than what it costs for the brand new X2 or for the GoPro Max. You're also still getting an action cam on top of that. I bought my twin edition for $539. The new X2 is $599 Canadian, and so is the GoPro Max. But you don't get a separate camera. So now I have an action camera and I have a 360 camera, all for $539. If I was to do that with the GoPro and the X2, I'd have to pay another $400 or $500 for another action camera on top of that. My price would then be up at around $1,000. I can get 3 cameras, get the 1-inch sensor, and put it in the modular system, and I've got 3 cameras for $1,000. Now, this camera here, the 1R, is always in a cage. There's no mount on the bottom, so you always have to put it into a cage to get it to work. Now, the 1R, it has a GoPro mounting system with that little tri-thread right there. What that means is that it's a lot more suited for high speed, like motorsports, like when you're jet skiing and you dive into the water hard and things like that. Then you probably won't wreck that 1/4-inch thread that you're doing. So it's much durable, but it also has downsides. This has no 1/4-inch thread on it. You need to put it into this case to put it on a tripod or to do anything with it. So that's a bit of a pain in the butt. And to make that camera waterproof, you also need to put it in the tray. So removing memory cards, plugging the thing in, closing the door, little things like that all have to be done in the cage, which takes a little bit of extra time. It makes a noise when you're using this. It rattles a little bit, and you can hear that in the camera audio. This screen, it can be reversed. So you just unplug it, and then if you want a forward-facing screen, you just put it back together like this, clip your battery back on, and away you go. Now you got a front-facing screen on it. So that's really handy when you're using this 4K or the 1-inch sensor. If you break or scratch the lens, all you have to do is replace the little module. I don't have it on me right now, but replace the 360 module with another module. Costs you a lot less than if you had to replace the whole camera, that's for sure. So, as I told you before, this should have made your decision really simple. I'm just going to go through a quick summary and tell you guys which camera is right for you. So, if you just want to try out 360 cameras, I would buy the Insta360 X. That way, you can just get familiar with the workflow and what the cameras do. It has the same sensors, image stabilization, and quality. You're not losing out anything picture-wise or content-wise on this camera. You're just missing out on a few bells and whistles that are contained in the app. If you want versatility and you're doing a lot of motorsports like on this channel on Six's Overdrive, then you're going to want the one I got. Insta360 1R Module Edition, Twin Edition, whatever you call it. It's a better value. It's a more robust camera. It feels more robust than either the 1X or the X2. The X2's come a long way, but this thing still feels, it's got a good weight to it. It's got a good form factor. for doing things in high wind or in high resistance. And the best part of it is you can get 3 cameras for $1,000, 2 cameras for $539. That's a pretty good bargain considering that the X2 costs more than this and it only does the one thing. If you're not into power sports, I would go X2 all the way unless you need another action camera. The X2's form factor is quite a bit nicer than the 1R. The fact that you don't have to have a case with it and you can just slip it in your pockets and take it wherever you want is worth it alone. And if you're doing real estate, photography and videography, you definitely want the X2 or even the X. This one, the stitch lines are a little unforgiving. So I'd stay away from that if you're going to be doing 360 photography and video tours and stuff like that. This isn't the one for you. This is for the action fiend. So we're pretty much at the end of the video, guys. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave some footage. Different scenarios that you want to see what these cameras can do. Because like I said before, they're not quite as good as your cell phone and stuff. So I put it in manual mode. I used the 4K mod. I used the 360 mod. I did low light. I did high contrast situations, backlit trees, going through a forest kind of thing and seeing how the automatic would work in it. So I'll label all those. I'm going to put them together for you. And I hope you really enjoyed this unbiased look at these 360 cameras. And I hope it helped you decide which one you want to buy. It should. If it hasn't, comment down below what I missed, because I really think that you can make a decision based on this. So otherwise, guys, remember to share, like, comment, and subscribe. This is Six's Overdrive, and I'm out of here. Bye-bye.